Hi guys. Hey guys. I hate the hey guys. I just don't know what to say. Ugh. Hi guys. Hi guys. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a tutorial and review on the Life's a Drag palette from Lunar Beauty from Manny MUA. I am super excited to review this and let's just jump into it. Also, usually we've got Chip hanging out with us, but today we've got little Miss Daisy. She's got some allergies, that's why her eye's watery, but she is beautiful. Yeah, so I'm going to go through my thoughts about this really quick. This is not a first impressions. I did use it a few times. I personally feel like when I use something more than once, I can give a better, more thorough review. Although first impressions are fun, I like to be able to use it a few times first. So I have used this quite a few times, and I really, really, really am impressed by this palette. Now, I'm not going to lie, when I was watching Manny's reveal video and he revealed the colors, I was kind of like, I was a little confused by the color scheme at first. I was just kind of like, oh, that's interesting and different, you know. Everything's been kind of that like modern renaissance, which I love the modern renaissance, it's my favorite palette, but everything's been those like orangey, like pinky, purpley, warm tones lately, and I guess that's just like what was kind of expecting, because that's what everybody's been coming out with recently. So when he opened the palette, I was kind of like, not what I was expecting, but I actually think it's really, really, really smart. Because you do have your neutrals, obviously, which you've seen a million times, and you do have your pops of color, and they all actually mix really well too. And then you also have your shimmers in the middle, which I think make a nice like lid shade. You get 14 shades for $45, so I do think that that is a decently priced palette. And you do also receive a brush, which I do really like. However, I think I use it a little different than it was intended, which I will show you guys in a few minutes. The packaging, it's nice and like heavy and dense, and it is really big, which I kind of like. As you've seen, the pans are about the size of a MAC shadow, an Anastasia single pan shadow, a Makeup Geek pan. So they are a really nice sized pan. The shadows are really pigmented, however, they blend out super, super nice. I can't remember if it was this shade, which is Trade, or Snatched, but I was doing a look the other day, and I had put a little bit much on my brush, and I plopped it on the outer corner, and I was like, oh shit, that is not going to blend out. Sometimes, for example, this was my experience with the Subculture palette from Anastasia, some shadows, once you kind of plop it and they're real pigmented, that's where it stays, and you were like trying to blend it out, but you can always kind of see where it kind of clung in that certain spot. That did not happen with this though. I was like, oh crap, that's not going to blend out, and I was like really impressed by the way it actually did disperse on the eye and blend out. And the shadows almost create, because they blend so well, like a natural like gradient with themselves. It's really, really nice, really, really interesting. I will swatch a few shades. I'm not going to swatch them all, but just so you guys can see. But really, it's not always about the swatch, it's how it performs on the eye, and this palette performs really, really, really well on the eye. $45, 14 shadows, nice sturdy packaging, you get a brush, you get a mirror. I know some people are complaining about the emblem stuff around the mirror. That stuff just doesn't really bother me. I mean, I get it. It could be like a huge mirror across the entire back, but again, it doesn't really bother me. I can see just fine in it. But I know that's something a lot of people commented on. I will go ahead and swatch just a few shades. I'm going to swatch the shade Beat, because I think that's probably my favorite shade in the entire palette. There it is right there. It's very ultra reflective. It's like a light peachy pink shade, but it does kind of have like a shift to it. I'll go ahead and swatch the shade Trade. This is a matte burgundy-ish brown shade. There that is right there. Pretty darn pigmented, not insanely pigmented in the swatch, not gonna lie, but it does perform really well on the eye. We'll go ahead and swatch one of these colorful shades. We'll swatch the shade Fishy, which it's like a satin shadow. It does have a slight sheen to it, but it's not shimmery by any means. You can kind of see it right there. So that just kind of shows you the different finishes that are in this palette. I'm going to go wipe those off my hand and I will be right back, and we're just going to hop into the tutorial part. Another comment too, I have used the reddish shades in the palette, and I must say I have not experienced any staining. I know that that's something that Manny was talking about in his palette because it is in his video, because it is vegan, so it has dyes instead of, is it carmine, which is the crushed beetles. So it is more of a dye, which can stain the skin. I'm pretty darn fair, and I haven't experienced any staining with it, so I just thought I would share my experience with you. Sorry if I'm like really like, bleh. I suffer from migraines, and I'm starting to get a little bit of a headache on this side of my head, and so I feel like I'm a little monotone, so I'm sorry. Maybe if I get a little more coffee in me, we'll be good. Also, a little funny story about this palette really quick. It launched about a week before my birthday, and my fiance really wanted ideas of what to get me for my birthday. And so the day this launched, I was like, hey, should I buy the Manny palette? And he was just like, no, save your money. And he's never like that. Like, he's actually really supportive. He's like, buy whatever you want. Yeah, you need that. And I'm like, awesome. But he was like, no, save your money. And I'm like, okay, because it's going to sell out. And he's like, yeah, no, save your money. We're going to Florida, so save your money. And I was like, gotcha. And the day of my birthday, actually it was the night before, I was getting ready and I was going to go out with a couple friends. And I was like, gee, it'd be really nice, you know, if I had a new palette to get ready with tonight. And he was just like, what do you mean? I was like, and at this point the palette had already sold out. I'm like, well, what do you mean? What do I mean? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, the Lunar Beauty palette? And he was like, oh, you actually wanted that? And I was like, yes, I actually wanted that. You were like giving me the wink wink like you were gonna get it. And he was like, oh no, I'm sorry, I didn't know you actually wanted it. And I was so like, I thought that's why we were like, don't get it. Okay. And then he ran to the spare room and he came out with it. And I was like, oh, he scared me. All right, so now jumping into the look, I am going to try to recreate a look that I did yesterday, because when I wore it to work, everybody's like, what do you have on your eyes? I was like, Manny. So I'm taking the shade Kiki. Now, as you've heard from many people, it's not the most pigmented shade in the palette, but I don't mind, because usually when I do a really colorful or just a somewhat colorful look, I want to throw a nice, pretty color, not a neutral, like something colorful like this, in the crease, but it's usually too pigmented and it doesn't actually look like a transition shade to give that real, like, blown out sort of look. So I don't mind that this isn't crazy pigmented, because usually when I do a colorful look, I use like something like brown as a transition shade, and I think that this makes it so much better to use as a transition when you're using some of these colors. I am going to do a colorful look, but I was debating, do I do neutral, do I do colorful? And I was trying to think if there's something in between colorful and neutral. So I'm going to do a wearable, like a colorful look, but still wearable for every day, if that makes sense. So going in with Kiki. This is a Morphe M504. We're going to throw that in the crease. And it creates a very light wash of color, which I like. I hope I can recreate the same look I did yesterday. Ugh. Okay, so this is where we are just with Kiki, which is what I'm using as my transition shade. So I have two M504s, and the first one I used had a little bit of product on it. So that's that's going on right there, and then I switched. So this side looks way better, but it's going to be fine. We'll work with it. It's like, seriously. Okay. So that is our transition shade. Next, I'm going to take the shade Pageant Queen on an M514. And we're going to go a little lower in the crease. Okay, so those are now just the shade Kiki, then Pageant Queen. I'm gonna take a little bit of Kai Kai and just kind of almost go in the same spot as the purple, just maybe a little lower. Okay, so that is with the shade Kai Kai, and now you guys can probably see why I decided to wear this lip, which is the Too Faced Melted Matte in the shade Jawbreaker. I'm going to go back in with the M504, the one that doesn't have freaking brown shadow on it. I'm going to take just a little bit of Fishy, just a little bit, and go over the tops there just a tad, just to kind of brighten that up just a little bit. Okay, now using the brush that came with the palette, this side is technically made for packing on shades, but I'm actually going to use this side. I felt personally that it was too dense for using shadows in the crease, which I think it's intended for. It looks more like a buffing brush. It's a little too dense for that, so I'm going to take the shade Beat, just like that, and I'm going to pack this on the lid. Yesterday, I didn't use any spray, MAC Fix Plus. I didn't cut the crease with concealer, and it looked really, really good. So hopefully I can achieve the same look today. Okay, so this is the finished eyeshadow look. I am going to leave my lower lash line blank. That is what I usually like to do. But yeah, the colors just really blend really well into each other. And the shimmer, I didn't need any sort of spray. I like the way it looks on its own. So I'm going to go finish up with liner and lashes, and I'll be right back. You would not believe how long it just took me to find my lash glue. So half hour later, here I am with the finished look. It is very like cotton candy-esque, which is what I was going for. Yeah, just to kind of wrap things up, I think the palette is worth it. I think it blends out really well. I think the pigment is really nice. I think the color scheme is really actually well thought out. Like I said, the first time I saw it, I was kind of like, what? But now it makes total sense. It is a perfect palette to travel with. You have your neutrals, you have your lid shimmery shades, you have pops of color that actually mix well with the neutrals, or you can use them on their own. So thumbs up for this palette. Great job, Manny. Can't wait to see what he comes out with next. And I think that's all I really have for this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel before you leave. It is super duper appreciated. I always put my little face in the little bubble, and you can click on it and subscribe. Or you can subscribe down below in the drop down. Is that where it is? Drop down. Daisy's just clawing up my furniture. I don't know how to wear straight hair. My hair is naturally curly, so I'm like, I don't know what to do with it. But yeah, anyway, that's it. Please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Goodbye.